Find a comfortable position. Let your body settle into whatever is beneath you. Feel the weight of your shoulders, releasing. The weight of your arms, heavy and warm. The weight of your legs, sinking. Take a slow breath in through your nose. Hold it for just a moment, and let it go. Again, breathe in and out. With every breath, the day falls further behind you. The noise of it, the urgency of it, the weight of it, all of it softening now, dissolving like mist in morning light. There is nothing left to carry tonight, nothing left to prove, nothing left to finish. Just this moment, just this quiet, just this story. Tonight I am going to take you somewhere ancient, to a world where heroes walked the earth alongside gods, where strength was tested not once but 12 times, where a man carried the weight of impossible tasks on his shoulders, and found at the end of all of them something more than glory. He found himself. This is the story of Hercules, of the 12 labors, of the longest road a mortal ever walked. Close your eyes, let your breath slow, and follow me back to ancient Greece, to a time when the gods still walked among mortals, to a hillside above the city of Thebes, where a baby was born who would one day be remembered forever. His name at birth was Alcides. He would later be known by another name, a name that has echoed across 3,000 years. Hercules, son of Zeus, the greatest hero the ancient world would ever know. But before the glory, before the labors, before the legends, there was just a boy, born into a world that was already complicated by his existence, because Zeus had loved his mother Alcmene. And Hera, queen of the gods and wife of Zeus, knew. She always knew, and she had decided, before Hercules drew his first breath, that this child would suffer for his father's choices. That is where our story begins, not with strength, not with glory, but with a goddess's cold and patient anger, and a child who had done nothing to deserve it, but who would spend his entire life rising to meet what it demanded of him anyway. Let that quiet settle into you, the quiet before a long journey begins, the stillness of a world that does not yet know what is coming. Breathe and rest. Hercules grew up differently from other children. This was not something he chose. It was simply what he was. At an age when other boys were learning to throw a javelin or recite the names of the gods, Hercules was already stronger than any man in Thebes. His teachers noticed it immediately. The bow came naturally to him. The sword felt like an extension of his arm. Chariot driving, wrestling, music, philosophy, everything that was taught to the sons of noble families in ancient Greece, all of it came to him with the ease that made his teachers first pleased, then slightly nervous. But it was not his strength that defined him as a boy. It was his heart. He felt things deeply, more deeply than most people. Joy that was enormous and uncontained, grief that was equally vast, anger that came rarely but when it came was frightening even to him, loyalty that once given was absolute. He loved his family with everything he had, his wife Megara, their children, the life he had built in Thebes. It was not a life of glory. It was a life of ordinary happiness. And he was grateful for it in the way that people are grateful for things when they understand, somewhere beneath the surface, that they are lucky to have them. Hera had been watching, waiting, patient in the way that powerful things with a long view can be patient. She chose her moment carefully. She sent madness, a divine madness that fell over Hercules like a wave. That took the world from him and replaced it with something distorted and terrible. That made him see enemies where there were none. And when the madness lifted, when he came back to himself on the floor of his own home, he found what he had done in the grip of it, his wife, his children, gone by his own hands. He had not known, he could not have known, but that did not change what had happened. He sat on the floor of his home for a very long time, not moving, not speaking, the enormity of it pressing down on him like something physical. He eventually went to the oracle at Delphi, as all Greeks did when they faced something too large to face alone. The oracle spoke. "Go to Tiryns," she said. "Serve King Eurystheus for 12 years. Complete whatever tasks he sets for you. If you do this, you will find what you are looking for." He did not ask what he was looking for. He knew. He was looking for a way to live with what he had done. And so the labors began, not as a quest for glory, not as an adventure, but as penance, as the long, slow work of a man trying to find his way back to himself after the worst thing imaginable. Let that heaviness settle quietly around you, not as pain, but as the weight of something true. The truth that the hardest journeys begin, not with excitement, but with the simple need to keep going, breathe, and rest. The first labor was the Nemean Lion. King Eurystheus delivered it with barely concealed satisfaction. The lion of Nemea was not an ordinary lion. It was vast, ancient. Its hide was impenetrable. No weapon made by human hands could pierce it. It had been terrorizing the region of Nemea for years, killing livestock, killing people, moving through the countryside like a force of nature rather than an animal. Eurystheus had chosen it specifically because he believed it was impossible. He did not know Hercules well enough yet. Hercules traveled to Nemea. He questioned the locals, tracked the lion across days of searching. He found its cave on the slopes of a hill. He tried arrows first, watched them bounce off the hide without leaving a mark. He tried his sword. The blade bent against the lion's skin. He put down his weapons and used only his hands. He wrestled the lion in the darkness of its cave. The fight was enormous and terrifying and very long. But in the end, Hercules' hands were enough. He carried the lion back to Tiryns. Eurystheus, who had been so confident in the impossibility of the task, was so frightened by the sight of Hercules walking through the gates with the enormous dead lion across his shoulders that he hid in a large bronze jar. He would hide in that jar many more times before the 12 labors were done. Hercules used the lion's own claws, the only thing sharp enough to skin it, and from that day forward he wore the lion's hide as a cloak, the golden fur across his shoulders, impenetrable, a reminder of the first impossible thing he had done. The second labor was the Lernaean Hydra, a water serpent with multiple heads that lived in the swamps of Lerna. The particular horror of the Hydra was this: cut off one head and two grew back in its place. Hercules went with his nephew Iolaus. He tried cutting the heads himself at first, watched in horror as each severing doubled the problem. More heads, always more heads. He stepped back. He thought, and then he changed his approach. He called to Iolaus. After each head fell, Iolaus brought a torch and cauterized the wound. No wound, no regrowth. They worked together through the long swamp afternoon, head by head, torch by torch, until the Hydra was still. Hercules dipped his arrows in the Hydra's poisonous blood. They would serve him many times in the labors ahead. Let the rhythm of that work settle into you. The steady, patient rhythm of a task done one step at a time. Not all at once, just the next step and the next. Breathe and rest. The third labor was the Nemean Lion, a golden-horned deer sacred to the goddess Artemis. This labor required something different from the first two. Not strength, patience. The hind could not be harmed. It belonged to Artemis, and any harm done to it would bring the goddess's wrath. It had to be captured alive. Hercules tracked it for a full year, across mountains and rivers and forests and plains. Through every season, he did not rush. He could not rush. He simply followed, day after day, through rain and snow and the long golden days of summer. He watched it, learned it, understood its patterns and its rhythms. After a year, he finally captured it gently at a river crossing, without harming it. He carried it back to Eurystheus, then returned it to Artemis with respect. The fourth labor was the Erymanthian boar, a massive wild boar that had been terrorizing the mountain of Erymanthos. Hercules drove it into deep snow first, exhausted it, then caught it in his arms, alive, and carried it back on his shoulders to Tiryns. Eurystheus hid in his jar again. The fifth labor was the Augean stables. This one was different from all the others. Not a monster, not a creature, a task of humiliation. The stables of King Augeas housed thousands of cattle and had not been cleaned in 30 years. The smell of them could be detected from miles away. Eurystheus had chosen this labor specifically to humiliate Hercules, to make the great hero shovel manure. Hercules looked at the stables for a long time. Then he looked at the two rivers that ran nearby, the Alpheus and the Peneus. He diverted them, both rivers, rerouted their courses with his bare hands, moving enormous quantities of earth. The rivers ran through the stables, cleaned them completely. In a single day, Eurystheus refused to count this labor because Hercules had been clever rather than merely strong. Hercules noted this and kept going. Let the patience of that year of tracking come to you now. The patience of following something slowly, without rushing, without forcing, just following. One day at a time, breathe and rest. The sixth labor was the Stymphalian birds, a flock of man-eating birds with metallic feathers sharp as arrows that lived at Lake Stymphalus. They darkened the sky when they flew. Their droppings poisoned the crops beneath them. Their feathers fell like blades. Hercules could not fight them directly. There were too many, and they flew too high. The goddess Athena came to him here. She gave him a great bronze rattle made by the god Hephaestus. He shook it at the edge of the lake. The noise startled the birds into the air. And there, as they rose in their thousands against the sky, his poisoned arrows found them. He did not kill all of them. The survivors fled, far away, to an island in the Black Sea, where they would trouble no one for a very long time. The seventh labor was the Cretan bull, a magnificent white bull that Poseidon had sent from the sea as a gift to King Minos of Crete. It had gone mad. No one could control it. It rampaged across Crete, destroying everything in its path. Hercules sailed to Crete, caught the bull with his bare hands, tamed it, rode it across the sea back to the Greek mainland, presented it to Eurystheus, who released it. The bull wandered across Greece, causing trouble until it eventually became the Bull of Marathon, where it would one day meet another hero. But that is a different story. The eighth labor was the mares of Diomedes. 4 mares belonging to the king Diomedes of Thrace, magnificent horses. But Diomedes fed them human flesh. Travelers who came to his kingdom were given to the horses. Hercules came to Thrace. He fed Diomedes to his own horses first. After that, the mares were calm. They had eaten what they had always really wanted. Their master. And without that particular diet, they became ordinary horses. He brought them back to Tiryns. 8 labors done. 4 remaining. Hercules was not the same man who had begun. Each labor had taken something from him and given something back in its place. The something it gave back was harder to name. Not just strength. He had always had strength. Something quieter than strength. Something that comes only from having done very hard things and survived them. Let that quiet accumulate in you now. The quiet of things survived. The steady weight of someone who has kept going. Breathe and rest. The 9th labor was the girdle of Hippolyta, queen of the Amazons, the warrior women who lived on the shores of the Black Sea. Eurystheus wanted the girdle for his daughter. Hercules sailed east with a crew of companions. He arrived in the land of the Amazons expecting a fight. What he found instead was something that surprised him. Hippolyta came to meet him on the shore. She had heard of Hercules. She was not afraid. She looked at him, this enormous man in his lion skin with his olive wood club. And she saw not just a hero, but something more interesting. Someone who was tired. Someone carrying more than just the weapons and the skin of a lion. She agreed to give him the girdle, willingly. She respected what he had done and what he was trying to do. But Hera intervened. She moved through the Amazon camp spreading a rumor. Hercules is here to kidnap your queen. The Amazons armed themselves. They attacked the ship. In the confusion of the battle, Hippolyta was killed. It was not what Hercules wanted. It was never what he wanted. But he took the girdle and sailed back to Greece. The 10th labor sent him to the ends of the earth, to the island of Erythea, far to the west beyond the setting sun. There lived the giant Geryon, a creature with 3 bodies joined at the waist, 3 sets of arms, 3 heads, 6 legs. He owned a herd of magnificent red cattle guarded by a 2-headed dog named Orthrus, and a giant herdsman named Eurytion. The journey west was as difficult as the labor itself. Hercules crossed the Mediterranean. At the point where Europe and Africa nearly touched, he set up 2 great pillars as markers, the Pillars of Hercules, what we call today the Strait of Gibraltar. He crossed to Erythea, defeated Orthrus, defeated Eurytion, defeated Geryon, and drove the red cattle back across the entire width of the known world. It took months, across Libya, across Italy, through the Alps. The cattle wandered, were stolen, were recovered, one by one. With infinite patience, he delivered them to Eurystheus, who sacrificed them to Hera. There was irony in that. Hercules noted it without comment. He was learning to let certain things go. That too was a kind of labor. Let the vastness of that journey come to you now, the long, slow crossing of an entire world. Step by step, breath by breath, all the way to the edge of the known, and back, breathe, and rest. The 11th labor was the apples of the Hesperides. Golden apples, grown in a garden at the very edge of the world, tended by the Hesperides, the daughters of evening, guarded by a dragon named Ladon who never slept. This labor required Hercules to go further than he had ever gone. beyond the pillars he had set up himself, into the unknown west, into the part of the world that had no name. On his way he encountered Prometheus, the Titan who had given fire to humanity, who had been chained to a rock by Zeus as punishment, who endured every day an eagle descending to eat his liver, which regrew each night, only for the eagle to return with the dawn. Centuries of this. Hercules killed the eagle, he broke the chains, he freed Prometheus, and Prometheus, in gratitude, told him how to get the apples. "Do not get them yourself," he said. "Find Atlas. Ask him to get them for you." Atlas, who held the sky on his shoulders at the edge of the world, was the father of the Hesperides. The dragon would let him pass. Hercules found Atlas, made him an offer. "Let me hold the sky while you get the apples." Atlas agreed. He handed the weight of the sky to Hercules and walked away. Hercules held the sky, the weight of it, the actual weight of everything above. He stood with it on his shoulders and did not move. Atlas returned with the golden apples, and then announced that he would take the apples to Eurystheus himself. He had no intention of taking the sky back. Hercules thought for a moment, then said, "Of course. But could you hold it for just a moment while I adjust the pad on my shoulders?" Atlas, not the cleverest of the Titans, took the sky back, and Hercules picked up the apples and walked away. Let that moment sit with you, the weight of something enormous, held for as long as needed, and then set down. The relief of setting something down that has been heavy for a very long time. Breathe and rest. The 12th labor was the last, and it was the one Eurystheus had been saving, the one he believed would finally be impossible. Not just difficult, not just dangerous, but genuinely, absolutely impossible. Bring me Cerberus, the guardian of the underworld, the three-headed dog who stood at the gates of the dead and allowed the departed to enter but never to leave. Cerberus was not a monster you could fight with arrows or a club or even with bare hands. He was divine. He was the underworld's own guardian. He could not simply be taken. To even attempt it, Hercules would have to descend into the realm of the dead while still alive, something almost no mortal had ever done, and survived. Hercules prepared himself. He was initiated into the sacred Eleusinian mysteries, the rituals that prepared a soul to face the underworld without being destroyed by it. Then he descended into the dark, down through the earth, past the roots of mountains, into the realm where Hades ruled. He crossed the river Styx on Charon's boat. He passed through the fields of Asphodel. He walked through the underworld as a living man among the dead. He found Hades on his throne, and he made his request directly, without pretense. "Let me take Cerberus to the surface. I will return him unharmed." Hades studied him for a long moment. He had been watching Hercules for some time. He had watched him descend living into the underworld. He had watched him walk through the fields of Asphodel with the specific steadiness of someone who had already faced death in ways that most mortals never do. He respected this. "You may take him," Hades said, "but you may not use weapons, only your bare hands." Hercules agreed. He found Cerberus at the gate, 3 heads, each one capable of killing a lesser man instantly. He wrestled the dog with his bare hands. He held the 3-headed creature against his chest and held on. Cerberus fought. He bit, all 3 heads. Hercules held on, until Cerberus, tired, until the enormous guardian of the dead went still in his arms, not defeated exactly, but held, secure. Hercules carried him to the surface, presented him to Eurystheus, who hid in his bronze jar for the last time. Then Hercules returned Cerberus to the underworld. As promised, he stood at the gates of the dead and watched the three-headed dog return to his post. And then he turned and walked back into the light. The 12 labors were complete. Let that completion settle into you. The feeling of something finished, something long and difficult and finally done. The light at the end of a very long road. Breathe and rest. 12 labors, 12 years, 12 impossible things made possible by a combination of strength and cleverness and patience, and the kind of stubborn endurance that cannot be taught or inherited but only earned through experience. The Nemean Lion, whose hide no weapon could pierce, defeated by bare hands in the darkness of a cave. The Lernaean Hydra, whose heads multiplied with every cut, defeated not by more force, but by changing the approach entirely. The Ceryneian hind, sacred to Artemis, captured not by strength, but by a year of patient following. The Erymanthian boar, driven into snow, exhausted, caught alive. The Augean stables, cleaned not by labor, but by rerouting rivers with clever thought. The Stymphalian birds, scattered not by fighting, but by sound, then brought down with arrows. The Cretan bull, tamed, ridden across the sea. The mares of Diomedes, fed their master, calmed by the ending of what had made them what they were. The girdle of Hippolyta, won through respect first, lost through Hera's interference. The cattle of Geryon, driven across the entire known world with infinite patience. The apples of the Hesperides, obtained through wisdom and the willingness to carry the sky. And Cerberus, the guardian of the dead himself, held with bare hands and returned with honor. Each one different, each one teaching something the previous ones hadn't. There is a pattern in these 12 labors that the ancient Greeks understood very well. The first few required strength, the middle ones required cleverness, the later ones required wisdom and patience, and the ability to move through the world with a kind of stillness that raw strength alone cannot achieve. The progression was not accidental. The labors changed Hercules because they were designed to change him, not by Eurystheus, who had meant them only as punishment, but by something larger, by the long arc of a life being shaped. He arrived at the 12 labors as a man broken by grief, a man trying to find a way to live with what had happened. He completed them as something else, not free of grief. Grief like that does not leave entirely, but someone who had learned to carry it differently, someone who had turned the weight of it into something that moved him forward rather than held him in place. He had held the sky on his shoulders. He had walked through the land of the dead while still alive. He had defeated creatures that no weapon could touch, and he had done all of it not for glory, not for reward, but because it was what was required of him, and he had done it anyway. There is something in that worth sitting with, the specific dignity of doing what is required, even when it is hard, even when it is unfair, even when you are tired. Let that dignity settle into you now, quietly, without fanfare. Just the simple truth of someone who kept going. Breathe and rest. After the labors, life continued, as it always does. There were more adventures, more voyages, more monsters, more complications brought on by Hera's endless patience for revenge. Hercules sailed with the Argonauts for a time. He founded cities. He fought wars. He loved again after Megara. He was human in all the ways that matter. He made mistakes. He lost people he loved. He did things he regretted and had to live with the regret the same way all of us do. The difference was scale. Everything in Hercules' life was larger than ordinary life. The joy was larger. The grief was larger. The mistakes were larger. The consequences were larger. But the experience of it, the actual living of it, was recognizable. Because it was human, at the end of his life, Hercules was placed among the stars. Zeus raised him to Olympus, made him a god at last, reconciled him with Hera, who had spent his entire life trying to destroy him, and who finally, in the mathematics of divine time, let go. He married Hebe, goddess of youth, and took his place among the immortals. The mortal Hercules, the boy born in Thebes, the man broken by madness, the hero who walked through the underworld alive, became a constellation. Hercules, still visible on clear nights, a pattern of stars that has been recognized for thousands of years. People look up and find him there, with his club raised, still moving, still going. The ancient Greeks told his story for a reason that had nothing to do with entertainment. They told it because they needed it. Because the 12 labors are not just the story of one man. They are the story of what it looks like to keep going when keeping going seems impossible. To take the next step when the next step is the last thing you want to do. To hold the sky when the sky needs holding. To walk through the darkness and come back to the light. We all have our labors. They do not look like the Nemean Lion or the Lernaean Hydra or the guardian of the dead. They look like ordinary life, like the hard things we carry, like the mornings when getting up feels like its own impossible task, like the years that ask too much of us and give back too little, like the grief we live with, like the love we keep choosing even when it costs us. These are the labors, and we keep going, the way Hercules kept going, not because it is easy, but because it is what is required, and we are capable of more than we know. And now, it is very late. The story of Hercules is complete, all 12 labors done. The hero is among the stars, and you are here, in the dark, in the warmth, in the quiet that comes after a long journey. Your body is heavy with rest. Your mind is still. The day is far behind you now. Everything that was required of you today has been met. You did enough. You are enough. Let your breath slow to its own rhythm now. In and out. In and out. The stars are out above you. Among them, if you know where to look, a pattern of light that has been there for 3,000 years. Still moving, still going. Good night.